Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Reconstructing Cave Story. In this episode we're going to be looking at damage texts, but there's a quick change I want to make, and I made an annotation in a couple of videos back about this, but I'm going to go into projectile.h, and we have this interface, right? But it doesn't have, it really should have either a virtual destructor or a protected destructor. It doesn't right now, and technically we're not ever deleting a pointer to projectile, but we are using shared pointers to projectile, so I feel like this is a very dangerous kind of dark, damp corner for bugs to hide in. So we're going to solve this problem by creating a virtual destructor, just as simple as projectile equals 0, and we're going to make it pure, but in order to do this we need to actually have an implementation for our destructor, because C++ requires that even if it is pure, you have an implementation for your destructor. So we can just write an inline, and it's got to be inline, otherwise we need to create another, put it in some compilation unit, some other CC file, and I don't want to do that, so we're going to make it inline, but inline projectile to scope it in, and projectile, and then just give it an empty implementation because it shouldn't do anything. So I'm just going to build and make sure that this is all building correctly and be done with this part of it. I was planning on making another change too, which is to fix the player collision, but it turns out to be a little bit more complicated than I had first thought, so I'm going to do that in the next episode. But yeah, this is still building, and I'll run it just to be, you know, completely thorough, I guess. And it's a good thing I did that because I introduced a 6 when I was typing. I don't know what happened there. Another interesting story, I have VS Vim turned off, so if I make interesting mistakes like that, or I guess uninteresting mistakes, then that's why. So yeah, it's still working all happily and everything. And I don't expect this to actually make a change. It's just like for the future, so I don't have to think about it. And in general, you want to implement either a virtual or protected destructor for every single interface you have, just because it's meant to be inherited from. All right, so let's get started on the episode. So the problem we're going to be solving in this episode is damage texts actually need to outlive their owners. For instance, when the bat dies, its damage text still remains even after it dies. So, and we're also going to need to make sure that the damage texts are drawn on top of everything else, but still before the HUD. So we'll be implementing a damage texts class to own, update, and draw all the damage texts. And to help with this, we're going to make a damageable interface, so that anything, and a damageable interface is basically anything that can have a damage text, so the player or enemy in this case, and I think all cases, yeah, anything that has a damage text. So it's going to have a center X and a center Y, and then also a set damage text, I think. But we'll get into that and when we're actually implementing it, because it's not very interesting to talk about. So some ideas I had for this were we could have a map of shared pointer to a damageable pointer, and then every update we set damage text position to damageable's position instead of drawing at instead of having the X and Y, instead of having damage text draw method take in an X and Y, we actually keep track of the X and Y. So when the damageable has died, we can just keep drawing at the last X and Y that we were updated to. So the problem with this is, how do we actually know that the damageable still exists? Well, with just a naked pointer like this, we don't really know if the damageable still exists. So what we can use instead is a weak pointer. And this works with shared pointers and not scope pointers, but let me give you a little bit more information about a weak pointer. It's not, first of all, it's not even really a pointer. It just lets you know how many shared pointer owners there are for a given pointer. So you can say, has this pointer been deleted? Is it still alive? Kind of thing. And you can also find out the reference count, or the ref count, which is essentially just the number of shared owners there are for a given pointer from the weak pointer. And then if you want to use it, you just have to convert it to a shared pointer. because again, weak pointers are too weak to do anything with the data that they hold. So we could, my next idea was to create a map of shared pointer to weak pointer of damageable. And so once this damageable gets destroyed, like it's a bat and it dies, then this weak pointer will let us know that it doesn't exist anymore. And so we can just draw from the last place damage text position was set to. Yep, that's it. Let's get started. So the place I want to start is right here. Every update set damage text position to damageable's position. So we're going to go into our damage text and we'll have an update method and also a set position. So void set position. They'll take an X and a Y. And we're also going to keep track of its X and Y position. So let's do units of game X and units of game Y. And let's also make sure that we initialize these. So where were they? Right after should rise. So we'll just give X 0 and Y 0. Oh, sorry, shouldn't write units of game twice. So set position, all it's going to do is set X to be X and Y to be Y. And we're also going to change our draw method so that we get rid of this center X and center Y. So you see, we're going to use these, I'll call this center X and center Y, I guess. Just to stick with our convention. And change these here. Let's start by implementing the set position. So it's going to be damage text. And center X gets center X. Center Y gets center Y. Now let's change our draw call to use our updated center X and center Y. And I think that's it. So now let's go into our player CC and our bat.cc. So when we update them, we draw them, we don't pass in the center X and center Y, but when we update them, we also set their position dots. And same thing in player.cc. And the reasons I'm doing set position and update separately is because we don't always want to set the position every time we update, because sometimes we'll want to update when there's no damageable or the bat is dead or something, so we won't have a center X and center Y to update with. So that's why I'm separating them. And I'm just going to make sure, this has just been a refactor, so it should just do the same thing it was doing before. So I'm going to build and run to make sure it's doing that. Looks good here, looks good there. All right, I'm happy. So now let's start with our damage text class. So I'll go into source, add new item. We'll need a header and a CC file, I think. So DamageTexts.h, DamageTexts plural.h. header guards. Oh my God. And then we're going to have a map. So let's include map. And it's going to be from a shared pointer. So let's include shared pointer. Oops, let's not include it like this. Let's include it like this. And we'll also need a weak pointer. So we are going to have a map from shared pointers of DamageText. So let's give ourselves a struct DamageText to work with. And it's going to be pointing to a weak pointer of damageable, which we'll need to define. So we'll call this map, what should we call it? DamageText map. Yeah. I'm going to make a type def for this. So type def DamageText map. Okay, I dig it. And we'll need a map. So DamageText map. DamageText map. What else do we need? So we need to be able to update and draw our damage text. So let's do that. Let's make some declarations. So void update is going to take in an elapsed time in milliseconds. So we'll need units. Elapsed time and update or draw, which is going to take into graphics. So what do we need to do next? Okay, so we're going to need to make a damageable, and we're going to need to implement our update and draw. So let's start with update and draw and then see what we need to have our damageable take, I guess. So let's open a new CC file. DamageTexts, plural. And include DamageTexts. And implement these two methods. Let's start by doing the obvious stuff that we can do without a damageable, and that would be to update all the damage texts that we have. So that means we need to iterate over our damage text map, so let's do that. It's this iterator nonsense, so for damage text map, iterator, iter equals damage text map dot begin. And we'll need to do the same thing for draw. So the damage text itself is in iter first. So to get that, let's include damage text as well. And we'll draw inside of our draw method, giving it graphics. And we'll update inside of our update method, giving it elapsed time. Oops, update, not draw. So I'm going to build this. This should build correctly, and it does.